Hey everyone, it's Alexis. I hope you are doing well today. I am coming to you with a Tim Holtz themed video today. I get to work, we all know I love florals, but spring, Mother's Day, like all of these things are currently happening or quickly upon us. And so I wanted to use in my make today the Brushstroke Flowers number 4. Now, number 4 obviously tells you this is one in a series, so there are 3 other Brushstroke Flowers in the Brushstroke Flowers series, so be sure to check those out. This one is currently part of our Chapter 2 release, and I'm going to be using it in my make today, and I'm going to show you a couple of different ways that you can actually utilize it. So I've got a few different projects to show you, as well as a make that I'm going to go through. I'm going to be using some embossing folders, also part of Tim's collection, and I'm going to be using the Tim Holtz black foldaway machine. So I'm going to switch to an overhead camera. We're going to get right into it and get into all the goodness that is Tim Holtz. Okay, so like I said, I'm going to be focusing my makes today on a Chapter 2 die from Tim Holtz. It is the Brushstroke Flowers number 4. I'm going to bring this up so you get a nice close look at it. So this in particular is not a colorized die in the sense that it is layering like a colorized, but it does have a colorized feel to it. But these are very simple to put together. They're just 2 layers, and I absolutely love how simplistic, but how kind of ethereal and, as Tim would say, whimsy they kind of are. That's something I really prefer, but I think what I really love about this, which they've done, is all of the elements for a particular make, or for a particular die, I should say, all of them are on the same die. So you'll see this large floral, which obviously just looks like a big blob right here, but when you cut it out, you will see etched lines that are put onto the actual piece that you cut out, and you'll see that in a little bit when I actually cut one of these out. But then all the layering pieces are over here to this side. So everything you need to see, you'll be able to see the shape right here to line up the piece from over here. And it's the same way with the large flower, this smaller flower right here. And then these don't actually layer up, but they do look really nice paired together, these 2 kind of leaf sprigs. So this is what comes in the die set. It is going to be the primary focus of my makes today. I have incorporated some other stuff and I will talk through those, but I kind of just want to dive right into a fun way to utilize these dies. Now, because they're thinlets, they cut thin surfaces. So think cardstock, vellum, things that are really very thin, and you're not gonna be able to cut through thicker surfaces per se with these, but there is a lot of different techniques that you can use. And one of the techniques that I'm really enjoying is kind of like a splotching technique is what I call it. So I'm going to be using Distress Oxides today to create a really fun inked background. Now, this is something that Tim talks a lot about on any of his Ranger videos on his YouTube channel. Talks a lot about just getting and making backgrounds for things. You just take your inks out, have fun with them. What I love about Distress Oxide inks is that they're really bright pigmented tones, and you really, as you can see, like they are super vibrant. And the great thing about them is that they layer. So you don't get this muddy look that you could achieve or you could have happen with Distress, because Distress is not meant to necessarily blend or layer on top of each other. Certain colors will obviously start to turn brown. Whereas with Distress Oxides, they were developed so that they actually layer on top of each other. And it is so nice to work with them. So I'm actually going to, I've obviously pre-cut some of my pieces because nobody needs to watch me glue a million little pieces together. So I've prepared some of the flowers already, and I've cut some of the leaves. I am going to show you how I created these backgrounds just so you get an idea. We do have Distress Oxides available on the website on Sizzix.com and Sizzix.co.uk. I'm going to be using my Multimedia mat today to create my blends. And I'm going to grab a piece of cardstock real quick. Now you're going to want to use a heavier duty cardstock, I think, a heavier weight cardstock when you are working with water, which I'm going to be doing because when you put down the ink, you definitely are going to be getting it wet. And so you want to work with a heavier duty cardstock just so that it doesn't begin to warp too much. We're going to be die cutting from it, so it's not too big of a deal. You're going to want like a mini mister or some kind of mister. A water spritzer of any kind will suffice, and your handy dandy paper towel or kitchen towel, as I know my friends in the UK call it. So I am going to I normally would cut this down to size. I'm going to just use a small area. You're also going to want to have like a heat tool nearby when you're doing this, or a hair dryer, kind of something that when you are setting the color in between layers will dry things for you quickly. So I'm going to start off by applying, you know what, I am going to cut this down. I'm just going to freehand cut it because I already did a panel and cut my flowers out. I just wanted to show you how I got the color blends that I did. So I've got my paper just cut down to a achievable size, we'll say. And I want to start, I think, with my pink layers. Now, how you do this, there's really probably a few ways that you can actually do this. And I highly recommend going over to Tim's YouTube page, because he does amazing tutorials on the distress range in general, and he's going to be way more knowledgeable on what you can and can't do with these, the different properties. I'm obviously focusing on dyes and techniques today, but if you want to go more in depth on distress oxides and what they're capable of, highly recommend going to check out Tim's YouTube videos on it. He's got quite a few with Ranger, so just take a look for those and you'll be able to get all up to speed. So what I've done is I've applied a bit of, I'm using picked raspberry. I've applied a bit of it to my multimedia mat. This is a, not a vellum, I almost said vellum. This is a mat that is silicone. And so it's really great when you are needing a surface that's easy to clean off. It's heat resistant. I love working with this mat. And as you can see, I'm using it vertically. You can use it vertically or horizontally. So if you're ambidextrous, this is a perfect mat for you. So once it's nice and wet and you like how I'm doing it, you can also get in closer if you wanted to really get that to spray differently. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to literally dab it and let my inks kind of move over the page. And I am going to do a few layers of this. Now, this first layer I got really wet because I want like a pale pink in the background. I don't want something super dark for my first layer. So I'm just doing a light layer on the top. I'm going to dry this a bit, so pardon the noise. Oh, I guess it would help if I turned on the power source. There we go. Now I want some of this to have kind of blotchy look to it, so I'm not going to let it fully dry. I am going to go back in and pick up a few more of those little droplets. You'll see it starts to kind of build that background. Now in between layers, I personally like to clean off my mat while it's still wet, and as you can see, it comes right off, which is beautiful. And I'll switch to another color. I'm letting this dry a little bit before I switch to my next color. Okay. So you see, you get those, start to get those splotches in the darker tones. Now, as I go up and build my layers, I'm going to use a little bit less water each time because I want to really build the vibrancy. And the more water you add, I feel like the more watered down the background becomes. So I've I've got a little bit on here. I'm going to add just a little bit more because this is the first layer of purple I'm putting on. I am using the Wilted Violet, and I'm just going to kind of go across. I actually need to add a little bit more. There we go. You want to get that in there and get that moving around. I don't think I'm actually paying attention where my water is going. So you can see, I just want like a really wild background. I am going to be cutting the flowers out of it, so I want the color to be sporadic and all over the place, so I get a really cool looking background. So I'm going to dry this a bit. So you can see I like to dab as I go. That's just my personal preference. I would recommend just playing around with this, have fun with it. I feel like the more you practice, the easier it becomes. And I just really enjoy playing with Distress Oxides because of their ability to layer. It's so cool seeing how you can build up all these different color palettes, build up the vibrancy, see how much darker that pink is that I just added. I am playing so I can get those little river droplets. And there's no like rhyme or reason. I'm just going around picking up different areas. And I like to build this. So I'll like do this for a few minutes and just play with all the different layers. Now I want some more vibrant kind of splotches. So I'm gonna just clear my surface real quick. And I'm not gonna do these as watered down as the other ones because I want it to just get darker and darker as I go up. Okay. Okay, so I think I'm gonna add some more purple to this corner. Yeah. No rhyme or reason, just having fun. I love the watercolor blend. It just adds to it. And I can go back in and just layer it in, get those splotches. The quick splotches are what give you those darker tones. Okay. And then I'm going to do one last splotch so I can get those darker kind of splotches. You want to do those when your background is dry so that they are nice and dark themselves. Now I have left some white space or some lighter colored space just because I want to have that color variation in the flowers. But I am completely happy with that background and I love blending the colors. I find there's a lot of color palette options on Pinterest. So if you're looking for what Distress Oxides might blend well together, I would highly recommend checking out Pinterest because they have a variety of different makers who have done all the blends for you so you can see what colors look like together. which I think is amazing. Now I'm going to show you, I'm going to pull out my machine real quick. I'm using the black Foldaway machine from Tim. Love the Foldaways. And I need my platform. So typically what I would do after I've got this loaded up, I've got my standard platform here, and I've got my thin die adapter. I've got one cutting pad, and now I'm going to lay down my inked panel, and I'm going to die cut out of the ink panel the flowers. Now, depending on the size that you want, you can cut out 3 at a time, or 3 flowers from a panel I found for this particular one. So just going to run this through. Okay. I know Tim does this and I do this too. I just tap them out. But you look at how beautiful that flower is. And it's, I don't know if you can see, it might be kind of hard to see, but you can see the lines in there where it shows you where to layer your pieces. So I would layer that piece on. You can go back through, add more inks to it if you want, but all of your pieces get cut out and then you just layer them up following the guidelines. And what you end up with, I'm going to pull these in that are already done. You end up with florals that all look different, but all are in the same kind of family and color pattern, and you really can't go wrong. It ends up looking beautiful. I went back around these and added a little bit more picked raspberry and a little bit of black soot just to make them stand out a little bit more, but they are super fun. Now, I did the same kind of color blend idea for the leaves, and for that one, I just want to show you the colors I used. So I did the Distress Oxides again, but this time I used these 3 colors. So I did Cracked Pistachio, Twisted Citron, and Lucky Clover. And I did the exact same technique I just showed you with the Wilted Violet and Picked Raspberry Distress Oxides. And I just built the layers up and cut out a variety of the leaf sprigs from that panel. And you can see you get different color tones, variation in color. It just makes your make so much more unique and allows you to kind of customize it to colors that you like or maybe colors of the person that you're gifting the card to. I love the different brushstroke flowers because they all look like they belong together. So you could do really beautiful home decor pieces if you wanted to. The sky is the limit. Now I'm going to pull in the pieces I'm going to be building my card with, and I'm going to pull in all of it into the camera so you can see what I'm doing. Film tape. So I did want to show you one other item that I used. I've already run it through the machine, but I took a white panel and I'm using Tim's Damask 3D embossing folder, and that one is also in chapter 2. So this is, as you can see, a very intricate. I just loved how it felt like there was actually like movement in these particular leaves, and what you can do with 3D embossing is absolutely crazy these days. So I just really liked this texture, and I thought it would look really pretty behind these bright, vibrant flowers. That's one thing I really love to do with 3D embossing is just let the folder stand on its own. Just emboss it out of white. I did add a little bit of silver luster wax onto it in the corners. So we have luster wax in silver, gold, and rose gold, and in lilac rainbow, I believe is the other one. Lilac rainbow looks really pretty on black. So if you wanted to emboss this out of black, it has a really nice iridescent purple tone to it. But I've just taken a little bit of the silver luster wax and added it into the corners just to bring and highlight those different wave-like features. I have stamped a sentiment. I wanted to make Mother's Day inspired makes, or just things where you could send them out to friends during the spring. So I decided to use the stamp set from Pete Hughes called Dictionary Definitions. It's in chapter 2, and I stamped the love one just because I thought the sentiment on it really tied in with love for a mom or a motherly figure in your life. So I have added this panel onto a piece of cardstock. That is my card base, and I've put it on there with foam tape. I'm now going to center this little panel I cut from black cardstock in the middle of this white panel. So, and I've put foam tape there just to add a bit more dimension. Now, something I like to do is kind of lay out my pieces before I glue anything down, just so I can get an idea of where I want to lay things or if I want to tuck things. That's another reason I like using foam tape, because then I can tuck things underneath the panels if I want to. I know I'm going to use the flowers, and I'm obviously just moving these around in different patterns. Just figuring out where I want to lay everything. I think I want this right here. Okay, and then I'll go in and I'll add my flowers. So I'll probably layer these, 1 or 2 of them, underneath each other, just so that there's, let me see if I like that. I might pull this one down here. Yeah, I think that works for me. Okay, so now I'm just going to glue these things in place. I'm just going to be using some express glue and some foam tape. I do like to create dimension with foam tape, just so that you can see the texture and the vibrance of each of the flowers, especially when there are such different colors. You can highlight a section of a flower that you really liked. I also don't like to put a lot of glue on. I like the thing, especially when I'm doing foliage pieces, I like to just glue like the lower half or just the spine, so I can manipulate the leaves and make it more dimensional. So you'll see I'll move these around just to give them a little bit more of a lifelike texture. You could also use paper sculpting tools and add a bit of dimension that way. Trying to not oversaturate this with glue. I am going to show you two other ways I use this die, and I had a lot of fun, especially thinking of the different types of makers out there. Like, some people are a little bit more artistically driven that want to use mixed media, so I figured I'd do that one. And then some people just like using cardstock, and then other people like non-traditional kind of makes, and that's what I did on one. I'm going to add some foam tape behind this. Put that a little too wide. Okay. I would love to see what everyone's using for Mother's Day using the Tim Holtz dies. So if you have projects you've created or cards that you plan on giving to friends or family, please put them in the comments on Facebook. And if you're on YouTube, let us know if you are also loving the brushstroke flowers or what you're loving from chapter 2 from Tim. I definitely love to see what everyone likes to make with. Okay, I put a little bit too much on that, so I'm going to dab this off real quick. Here we go. So you'll see I like to just lay everything out first, kind of get a lay of how I want things to look. And I typically call that building. I like to build my cards, and I like to build my scrapbook pages. So that is how I operate. I'm putting way too much glue on this, but we will survive. I wanted one of the flowers to be layered underneath the greenery, so I'm putting one down first and then I'm going to lay some of the greenery on top. I like to tuck things. It makes it look more realistic, like how you would see things in a bouquet or how you would find them in real life. And especially with this particular die set where everything looks so realistic, I want to do that. I did go around the edges of these florals, or the foliage, sorry, with some of the Lucky Clover ink, just to give a darker trim to the foliage. We'll have this one coming from here. Almost there. And then I've got a couple more makes to show you. Trying to make sure I don't get glue heavy here. Okay, I think I'm going to do it like that, like a crisscross. And then I'm going to add a bit of foam tape to this one as well, so that I've got two elements that are dimensional. I do find now the florals on top of black, I can't take credit for that idea. It's something I've seen Pete Hughes do a few times, and I'm always in love with it when he does it. So I wanted to give it my own little spin today. So there is my finished card. I'm trying to make sure I get it in the camera. So as you can see, it's a really simple, I just took the flowers and the leaves and did them on some colored cardstock. I did different colors on a piece of cardstock and just layered them up and inked them, and then you get a really beautiful background. Now, let's say you're not someone who wants to kind of do the mixed media route. Let's say you want to just use traditional cards. Here, or cardstock, I should say. Here's another card. This one is also by Pete Hughes. I've just changed out the sentiment and the colors because he did this technique on the one he made. He took this technique and applied it to these flowers. So I wanted to just show you what it would look like if you just use cardstock. So in the background, I've used a folder from Tim called Woven. And then this is the bold text number 2. So there's 2 bold texts that have come out. There's bold text number 1 and bold text number 2. Bold text number 1 is more like everyday kind of sentiments like thank you, love you. And then the bold text 2 is more like inspirational quotes. So you get things like you make me smile, which is something my mom does. So I was like, perfect. I'll just, add a little you make me smile on there for all the moms out there. So what I did with this is I cut that out of a piece of black cardstock, and then I actually went over it with an antique linen distress oxide just to give it a little bit of a antique look and worn feel. And then I just did 2 pieces of different colored cardstock on each floral and added some distress ink. Same thing with the leaf sprigs, layered it all together. As I said, this is something Pete has made, so I've just replicated it. But I loved how it was both kind of organic with the woven background, which gave it like a burlap look, and then really clean with the actual florals. So there is a way to kind of mix and match your different makes. So you've got those 2 cards. Now, I wanted to do something really out of left field with one of them. So I have been playing around with vellum. So I did this one where I did the bottom layer of the flowers out of vellum, and then I did the layering pieces out of white cardstock. That way it had a place where I could adhere glue to it and also not make too much of a mess. So this one I did a stamped sentiment right here, sending love your way, with our gold embossing powder. And then I used just white cardstock, and then I went around the edges with a gold paint pen just to add a bit of variation and to tie it back into this gold right here. So you can clearly use inks, you can use cardstock, you can use vellum. It's a really versatile little die set, even though this flower is massive. There, like I said, there are 3 other flowers in the Brushstroke range, and you can mix and match them all together, and you can do them out of all kinds of different surfaces as long as they're thin enough, and you can use all kinds of different mixed media to give different techniques and different looks and feels to everything. Well, I hope you found that inspiring. I know I've got lots more ideas, and I'm really curious if you have any ideas. Definitely leave anything that you think might be inspirational with this die set in the comments, and share with other makers alike all your different ideas. You can, like I said, cardstock. You can do more of a mixed media, watercolor wash with the distress oxides, which are available on the website. And you can use vellum, which is a really fun, unique way to kind of use your makes. These are all available right now. The folders, the dies, the distress oxides, any of the tools I showed you today are all available on our website at sizzix.com, sizzix.co.uk, and be sure to check out Tim's YouTube channel. There is an overview of all the Chapter 2 releases where he shows what some of his makers have done with these same dies and folders, and he also goes through different videos with Ranger items, especially the distress stuff, and shows you all the different ways and properties you can use those particular items. So be sure to check those out if you were really interested in diving more into the stuff I showed you today. I hope you all have a fantastic day, and I look forward to talking to you again soon.